Hello, and welcome back to Random Vids. So, I want to say about a month-ish ago, I talked about some of the worst and best episodes of Bluey Season 1. Well, it's that time again that we talk about some Bluey. This time around, we're going to be talking about Season 2, and I felt like we should talk about the top 5 worst and the top 5 best Bluey episodes from Season 2. Like I said last time, Bluey is one of my favorite shows, and although I am like a big grown adult JK, I'm only 19, but I mean, like, it's meant for little kids, but Bluey does such a good job that even teenagers can watch it and not feel bored of the show. They do one heck of a good job, and I can easily say Bluey's probably one of my favorite shows out there. So anywho, yeah, we're going to be talking about some Blue today. Also, yes, I will be doing a Best Smash Bros. Stages video in the future, too. I've been so busy this year, like, sure, I graduated school now, but I have work now, which I work, like, almost every day. So, usually the only day I have off is Thursdays. Usually. But, like I said, I'll try to do a Smash Bros. Ultimate sometime this week, if I can. If not, then it will definitely come in the future. Also, if you're wondering if I'm going to be doing a Stuffed Animal Amazing Race Season 4 this year, you can forget that, because I am not planning on doing another one this year. Like I said before in my Will I Be Doing a Season 4 of Stuffed Animal Amazing Race this year, I said this year was something, and Season 3 was definitely a very big downgrade compared to the other two seasons, I think. So, I'm not really in the mood to be doing another amazing race, especially after Season 3 just ended. It's one thing back from, like, Season 1 and 2, but that's because I was at home all the time. It was pandemic season. Now we're basically out of that. And, yeah. Don't worry, I'll be doing a Season 4 in the future, but as of right now, no. Absolutely not. Anywho, I hope you enjoy this video with the top 5 worst and best Bluey episodes from Season 2. So let's go to my 5th least favorite, which that would be Squash. Oh boy, now you got your typical sibling rivalry episode. Hooray, because that's exactly what I wanted to watch when I wanted to, get away from real life. Although not saying this episode is very, like, relevant to me. Just saying, like, for a Bluey episode, this episode is just dry and boring. So it's basically Bandit and his brother Stripe go play squash against each other. It's sort of like tennis, but not. And Bluey and Bingo are there too and pretending to control them. Bluey is playing with Bandit while Bingo is playing with Stripe. So, the oldest versus the youngest, basically. And overall, this is just your typical sibling versus sibling episode, and it's just so dry and boring. Sure, Bandit and Stripe are siblings, but I mean, they just made this so dry and boring. There were so many other better episodes with Stripe and Bandit in it, like, Christmas Swim from the same episode. And of course, that brand new one from Season 3 where Bandit tells the girls a story from his childhood. You see, that one is done way, way better. There's charm to that one, and it ain't boring. This one, I just feel like we're in one setting the whole time, and it just gets so dry. I don't know, but I just find this episode extremely boring. Anytime I rewatch Bluey, this is an episode I always end up skipping. Nothing, like, it's not terrible, I just think it's a cliche. So now, I think we should move on to the 5th best, which is Escape. Now this is more like it. So, Bingo and Bluey are getting dropped off at their grandma's. And the reason why is because Bandit and Chili are going on a little vacation away from the kids. So, of course, when the kids find this out, they make it a competition, and they figure, you know what, then we could just go there and see you. And they're like, no, sorry, there's a big, wall that you can't get over. And you see where this is going, right? The Heelys use their imagination to make this one heck of an interesting story, where Bandit and Chili try to get away from Bluey and Bingo, but Bluey and Bingo try to catch up to Bandit and Chili, and it's just so hilariously funny. And then when the kids finally catch up to the parents, then they're like, you know what? You win, but the kids want to keep going. So Bluey and So now Bandit and Chili try to chase Bluey and Bingo this time around to give them hugs and kisses. And you know what? It's just so funny. Like, I love this episode. I love the creativity into it too. And heck, it's so interesting that even Bluey and Bingo can't watch TV. They just want to draw all the storylines that they came up with through this episode. Man, but talk about a creative episode. This is easily one of my favorites from Season 2. Now with that, let's move on to my fourth least favorite, and that would be Charades. Yeah, I think you probably knew this one was going to be on here somewhere. So, yet again, kind of like Squash, it's just in one setting the whole time, but unlike Escape, where it was actually interesting, this one just, I don't know. While I do love episodes that have Muffin and Socks in it, sometimes Muffin can get a little obnoxious, especially in the earlier seasons. And, I don't know what happened in this one. I don't know if Muffin missed her nap or what, but this was something. So they all play charades with their grandma. And, yeah, that turns out swimmingly, because when Muffin ends up getting the card, she wants the ballerina one. So then they have to search through it to look for the ballerina one. But then she wants to dress up like a ballerina, so then they have to get clothes for her. Oh, but then she whines because there's no music, so they have to give her some music to play to. Good lord, this lady. She's demanding, and she wants it now. While I usually love Muffin in some episodes, this one, she just like I said, she just seems like the child who didn't get a nap. And usually, you'd get punished for wanting things all the time. But no, not at Nana's house, apparently. Instead, you get what you want. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure that's the way it works. You know, you usually get stuff when you're being good. But Muffin's just being a whiny little baby in this episode, so I think some time out corner would be well for her. This episode is kind of filler, too. They just don't know what to do with it. Besides make Muffin an annoying little brat. And that's basically the whole episode. It's just so boring, and I'm just over the episode. Muffin gets extremely annoying, and nobody does anything about it. And that's not Nana's character, too, because, you know, we saw in a Season 3 episode that Nana can be strict sometimes. I don't know, though. I just think this episode spoils Muffin for being a bratty little kid. So, I don't really like this one. I think we should move on to the fourth best now, and that one is Bus. Aw, man, I love this episode. Of course, guess who the bus driver's gonna be? Of course it's gonna be Bandit just singing the wheels on the bus. It's just such a goofy beginning, and I love it. And I love how the episode takes a romantic type approach, where Chili gets on the bus and pretends that, like, this is the first time she's ever saw the bus driver Bandit, so she, is secretly in love with him. And of course, for funsies, Bluey and Bingo don't enter the bus, but no, Rita and Janet do, aka the older versions of Bluey and Bingo. Basically a callback to Grannies from Season 1, which was a pretty good episode. And if these two were funny in Grannies, oh, they were a lot even more funnier in this episode. It's just so goofy, and I love how Bluey and Bingo, Rita and Janet were trying to help Chili out with trying to ask the bus driver out. And then you gotta love the whole randomness of this episode. It's just so funny, and it makes it really unpredictable. Apparently the bus driver gets thrown out the bus, and it moves without him. And then towards the end, Chili can finally tell Bandit her feelings for him. Oh, but apparently Bandit's already married to a giraffe, so that's kind of out of the picture. But I mean, this episode is just so goofy. It reminds me of Season 1's Taxi, which was another amazing episode. Very fast-paced, very action, and it's just so funny and hilarious, just like Taxi. Both episodes are basically like the same, but just a different vehicle and a slightly different story. It's an amazing episode, and it's definitely one of my favorites from Season 2. Now we should go to the third worst, which is Bingo. And no, I'm not saying Bingo is a bad character. In fact, she's probably my favorite out of the Healer family. Well, besides Bandit, of course. But I mean, Bingo is just such a lovable, like, cute, goofy character. And you gotta love her. You gotta love how they, like, perfectly made, like, a 4-year-old into, like, a dog. I don't even know what I'm saying, but basically they captured her perfectly. So what happens if you give her her own episode? Well, she kind of just sits around and does nothing besides trying to be not bored in front of everybody. Which, I mean, if you are really obsessed with Bingo, then I guess you'll like this episode. But man, this episode is a full lot of nothing. All that happens is that Bingo just walks around and tries not to be bored. And some people said Handstand was bad. At least something was happening in that episode. Bingo had no purpose of being this bad. And that's a shame too, because Bingo, like I said, is a good character. And she does deserve her own episode every once in a while. But I don't know if I really would want another one after seeing this one. Man, I thought Charades was filler. Oh, this episode is even worse. It's filler, filler, filler from the start to the middle to the ending. It just doesn't end. It's just one of those so boring episodes that it's bad. Like, really? Bingo at the house by herself. What kind of interesting stuff do you think's gonna happen? Nothing much. She needs her sister there and her parents. Nothing interesting happens in this episode, and it's easily one of the worst from season 2. And while a lot of people, not a lot, but I know there is a few people who do like this episode, I really can't stand it. It's so dry. Like, I don't think they really know what they wanted to do with this episode. They figured, oh, everyone likes Bingo, right? We'll make an episode about her. Now, what do we do with her? She can just sit around the house and just do normal, just boring stuff. Instead of, getting out, playing with her friends, playing with her dad, literally anything else besides just walking around the house, like, ugh. But yeah, this is definitely one of the worst episodes from season 2. I think we should move on to the third best, which is movies. Now this is more like it. So Bluey, Bingo, and Bandit go to the movies. Simple does it. And the whole time, Bluey's kind of sensitive to a thunderstorm that could potentially be in the movie. So the whole time that they're sitting there watching the movie, Bluey's constantly covering her eyes and hoping that the thunderstorm scenes are over with, while Bandit assures her that he will let her know whenever they pop up, and that she don't need to worry about them. Meanwhile, we got a hyper Bingo just running around, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically, I guess she's just in a hyper mood, so she's just running around, spilling popcorn and just being goofy as heck. There's even a time where she somehow teleports between different seats, and it's just so hilarious. And then she even walks up in front of the cinema for some reason, and it's just so funny. And of course the infinite bathroom scene too. It's just such a goofy and just funny episode. And you gotta love how towards the end, Bluey overcomes her fear and, watches the movie. It's just such a... I don't know, but this one is just awesome. And also being someone who goes to the movies all the time to, watch movies, this is just such a, good creative episode. And man, it's just jam-packed full of fun stuff. And there's nothing else I have to say. This is an amazing Season 2 Bluey episode. It's definitely one of my favorites. Now let's get to the second worst, which is... Postman. Okay, you know what? I tried for Bingo. I didn't like it the first time. I rewatched it. I still didn't really like it. Postman, I'm sorry. I only saw it one time. It was that... Ugh. Now forgive me, because I've only seen it one time. I don't necessarily remember most of the story. I believe it started off with Bandit and Chili fighting, so they both took some time apart. But Bluey doesn't quite understand. And while this was done before in Season 3 Sheepdog, that episode was actually hilariously funny. This one is just kind of odd, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. While yes, it is hard being a kid and hearing your parents fight like that, they could have done this episode a lot better, because it's just yet again another bore snore. And the whole meantime, Bingo wants to play The Floor is Lava, which that's fine, but Bluey just really wants to mail this letter to Chili, I guess, that she wrote, and pretended that it was Bandit who wrote it. So, Then she has to play the floor with lava with Bingo to go to give it to Chili. While the floor with lava is a really interesting game that they created, the rest of that is just so boring. Like I said though, I've only seen this episode like one time, and I've never rewatched it because of how bad it is. This episode just isn't for me. I'm sorry. I think I think we should move on. Then let's get to the second best, which is Octopus. Now this is more like it. Remember when I was talking about Bingo and how her center of attention episode was just so dry? Well, guess what? Now we got to see Chloe, one of my favorite Bluey characters, and she got her own episode. Also, the fact that season 2, for some reason, didn't show Bluey's friends as much anymore, or even like the next door neighbor Lucky, and Judo was only in like 2 minutes of an episode. Good lord, what happened? But hey, at least we got an episode focused on Chloe. Okay, so Chloe is at Bluey's house playing Octopus, and she goes home and wants her dad to play it too, but her dad doesn't really understand the rules of how to play it. So as time goes on, Chloe gets more and more disappointed and upset. So her dad goes off and researches stuff about octopuses, which Chloe then apologizes and gets interested. Then eventually her dad learns how to play octopus, the game way. I don't know what you want to call it. So then Bluey comes over and they can play octopus whenever they want. This is just a sweet, simple episode. And because Chloe is one of my favorite characters of the show, I love how they made an episode focused on her. Nothing else I really have to say. This is just an amazing episode. It makes me hope that we get a lot more like Bluey's friends having their own episodes too. And having them be like this, not like the Bingo episode we got. Anywho, before we get to the number one worst Bluey episode, I think we should go through a few honorable mentions, or dishonorable, whatever you want to call them. Basically ones that could be like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's get to those ones. Ice Cream. Yep, this is another one of those episodes that just kind of takes up too much time for nothing. Basically, Muffin gets an ice cream, and Bluey and Bingo just barely, got one. Because their dad was about to say no, but all of a sudden, yes. And then even Bandit can't even help himself but get an ice cream. So okay, the start is kind of cool, but then for the rest of the episode, it's just Bluey and Bingo wanting to get a lick of each other's ice cream, and then having to, see how long their tongue is and how much big of a lick they'll get. Ay, 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 this dragged on forever. And then we get one of the most random scenes in Bluey history, where Bluey and Bingo stand up and start walking around trying to get a lick of each other's ice cream, and Bandit just kind of follows them. It's just such a weird scene. You can tell when it comes to ice cream, it definitely doesn't deserve a full episode. Only parts of it. I don't know what they were thinking with this one, because man, this one is a big filler mess of an episode. This one is probably number 6 on the list, if I had to put it there. Hammer Barn. Oh boy, this is the first episode of season 2, and this is on the list? I don't know what happened, but the first half of season 2 is just so bland. Not all the episodes, but definitely a lot of the ones that are on the list in the worst side here, I found them, at the very beginning of season 2. But I really love the episodes where the family just goes out shopping. It's just such a cool, change of scenery, and I love it. However, episodes like Hammer Barn are just so annoying. For example, Chili gives in to Bluey too much, and because Bluey wants everything that Bingo has, she ends up having to buy 2 of everything to make Bluey happy. I'm not sure if that's how it works. And it's so strange seeing them go so soft in some episodes, and then other episodes they're just so strict. Can we have a good balance, please? Look at this and then compare this to Ice Cream, where they had to watch their cousin eat ice cream. It was, I don't know. And both episodes, of course, are bad. But I definitely would take this over Ice Cream, because at least it wasn't filler. Bluey and Bingo are just that Bluey gets a little annoying in this episode. And then, of course, because why the heck not, they can get all those little paint things. I think you know what I'm talking about, because they're free. That's just a very odd message. Like you can't buy things. I don't even know anymore. This episode could have gone so much better. And of course it has Pat in it, the most overrated Bluey character of all time. Hairdressers. Well, I hope you like episodes that torture Bandit in it, because this is one of them. Yet again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with this episode, and I do watch it every once in a while, but it's just another one of those boring episodes. But yeah, yet again, not a terrible episode, but definitely one of those just more meh ones. Stumpfest. Here's another one of those dumb, out-of-idea episodes. It's just Bandit, Stripe, and for some reason, Pat ripping out a bunch of stumps. I swear, Pat is the most overrated character in Bluey. I don't understand why he's in episodes but not Lucky. I would much rather Lucky or even Chucky be in episodes. Because Pat is just so boring. I don't understand why he's so interesting. But yeah, they basically just rip out stumps. Bluey gets upset because she turns one into a makeup stand. And yeah, that's basically the whole episode. Super boring. I think we should move on. Burger Shop. Oh boy, kind of like Hammer Barn, where Bandit is just way too nice to them for some reason. Although, like ice cream, he hardly even lets get, like, I don't understand why do we have this mix? Why do we have so many of these episodes in this season? Bandit tells Bluey and Bingo to get out of the bathtub, but they're making a burger shop and want Bandit to join in the game. So it gets to the point where Bandit gets into the bathtub with them. It's just so random, and it just doesn't make any sense. Even Chili ends up yelling at them because Bandit's going too much over the edge, and ay. Another one of those snore bores. Let's move on. Dad Baby. Oh, you knew this one was going to be on here somewhere. Oh, boy. This episode is definitely something. If you want to see Bandit give birth to Bingo, then here you go. Here's an episode for you. This episode is so bad that it's banned. Literal banned. You can't find it really anywhere unless if it's like on YouTube. But man, this episode must have been that bad that they banned it. Fine by me. It's a very odd episode anyway. It doesn't help that Pat randomly came over and you know what? We're done talking about this episode. I think we should move on to the absolute worst Bluey episode from Season 2, and that is Mr. Monkey Jocks. Oh, God. I think it's safe to say any toy or puppet being the center of attention in Bluey just always will make a absolute worst episode. I mean, look at Season 1 where we had Bob Bilby and Sean. Both terrible episodes. And now Mr. Monkey Jocks? Like, why does this keep happening? Don't make toys the center of attention anymore. Oh yeah, we got Unicorse, and that was much better. But I mean, like, back then when they didn't know what was right, this is just boring. And Mr. Monkey Jocks is rude to everyone, too. Unlike Unicorse, where, you know, it's funny. Mr. Monkey Jocks is just torturing Bandit, basically. And that's no fun. Like I said, I don't mind a few Bandit torture episodes, like, some of it's fine. Hairdressers, kind of pushing it, but Mr. Monkey Jocks, really? This is just basically I'm trying to think. This is basically just like SpongeBob and Patrick torturing Squidward. It's that stupid, it really is. Oh, but then Mr. Monkey Jocks turns and kicks Chili, Bingo, and Bluey out of the house. I think you know a game goes too far when you get kicked out of the house. That's just cruel. And while, yeah, there was a Season 1 episode where Bandit pretended he was kicked out of the house too, but that's the thing, he pretended to, and that was part of the game. Plus, that episode wasn't really my favorite either, but at least it worked. This episode, it just doesn't work. Mr. Monkey Jocks is easily one of the worst Bluey episodes of all time. And there's nothing else I have to say about this episode. It's just terrible. I don't like how this monkey treats Bandit, and then later everyone else at the end. It's torture, it's terrible, and it's easily, like, my least favorite episode of Season 2. I think we should get to the better side of things, so let's talk about a few honorable mentions for the good sides. Trains. Another one of those fun, fast-paced episodes. Yet again, this kind of reminds me of Bus and Taxi, just because, you know, it's something that transports people, and they made it into a Bluey episode, and man, I really like it. Also love how Chili is basically just everything in this episode, and then Bandit is, of course, the train conductor. It's just so goofy and so hilarious. And then Bluey trying to take her cat on the train is just so fun. Like I said, I love episodes like this. This, Taxi, and Bus all are amazing. Seesaw. Like I said before, Season 2, for some reason, just doesn't have as many episodes with Bluey and her friends in them. But, okay, the ones we did end up getting were really good. And Seesaw is just full of some of my favorite Bluey characters that we normally don't ever get too much. Like, we get to see Chloe and Coco and even Snickers, one of my favorite characters. Heck, even Judo at the end, which at the time she still wasn't really my favorite character until Season 3. Oh boy. And a new one, Pom Pom. Okay, so Bluey and Bingo are seesawing, and then Bandit sits on one end and it weighs Bingo, or weighs Bluey, and of course he's more weight than Bluey, is what I'm trying to say. So then Bluey tries to get a bunch of her friends to see if they can be heavier than Bandit, which eventually they do, with Pom Pom joining them. This episode is just so funny, and I love how Chili just randomly gets involved with the game too. It's definitely a classic from Season 2. Double Babysitter. Now this is one heck of a funny episode. You gotta love how Bandit and Chili go off, and Bandit gets his oldest brother, Rad, to watch the kids. But then, Bluey's one friend, Frisky, comes over to babysit. Oh, but then both of them babysit. And can you guess what? They're both also single. I think you know where this episode's going. They both love each other from the start, and this is just such a wonderful romantic story episode, and I really enjoy it. You gotta love the way that both Rad and Frisky both look in each other's eyes, and they can tell like they're meant for each other. It's just done so well, and that Bluey sort of knows too that they kind of like each other. Oh, it's just so funny. And then towards the end, we get to see them sitting out in the porch on the balcony, whatever, and just watching the stars. It's such a romantic and amazing Bluey episode. And yeah, we got to see this before with like Bandit and Chili, but I mean, it's fun when you actually get to see two people actually hook up in a Bluey episode. And a few episodes later, we got Christmas Swim, which then confirms that Radley and Frisky are now married and a happy couple. Man, this is a wonderful episode. Such a sweet one. Muffin Cone. Man, when they do Muffin episodes right, they are definitely a treat. Basically, to stop Muffin from sucking on her thumb, Aunt Trixie puts on a cone, or as the dogs like to call it, the cone of shame, to stop her from sucking her thumb. So, of course, Muffin feels a little embarrassed to have this cone on her, because then normal games are harder for her. And we haven't had an episode up to this point about the cone of shame, but man, they did a good job with it. Muffin is actually, likable in this episode, and even when she does get a little grouchy, it's understandable why. She has this cone on her. Of course she's going to be embarrassed in front of her cousins. Plus, at the end, they end up making, the best of the cone anyway, which is really nice to see Bluey and Bingo really trying. And it's a lot better than the other Muffin episodes we got in this season, like Charades and even Library. Plus, you gotta love how Trixie's just there chomping on chips, even though she knows, she shouldn't, but she does anyway. It's just so goofy, and this whole episode is just amazing. Typewriter. Remember back at Seesaw when I mentioned how I liked Snickers? Well, now we get to see Winton in this episode, plus the Terriers, which we never see anymore. The Terriers are some of my favorite characters. Basically, Bluey's on a quest to find her typewriter, and Winton is sad because no one likes him. And Snickers doesn't like being different. But you know what? Sometimes it's okay to be different. That's just what makes you, you. And, Winton is one of the more younger kids there, so he isn't really sure what personal space really is. Sort of, I guess. I don't know. Winton's a little odd, but Snickers I can definitely understand. Basically, then they go on a quest to find the typewriter, and the Terriers are there to try to stop them. Obviously, just for a game, because they're goofy. I love the Terriers. Anywho, so they end up finding Calypso, who has the typewriter, I guess, but Calypso doesn't give her the typewriter? I don't know. The ending's a little odd, but you know what? I still love this episode. This is basically the Wizard of Oz episode, by the way. Anywho, with that, I think let's move on to the best Bluey episode from season 2, and that would be Army. Man, oh man, I haven't seen such a great Bluey episode in a long time. But here it is. Basically, the episode focuses on a new student at Bluey School named Jack, the Jack Russell. He suffers from ADHD. Basically, where you're constantly moving and it's kind of hard to sit still. So that's what Jack suffers from. And he ends up meeting a friend, Rusty, who does a perfect job of helping him through this ADHD thing and having, like, the first day of school heebie jeebies. And I already love Rusty already. He's such a cute and just awesome character. And of course, having Jack there just makes like the best duo ever. Plus, I don't know, this is just an amazing episode seeing Jack and Rusty together. Jack is already a good character. Rusty's a good character. I don't know what else what else do we need from this episode? It's just so amazing. And even if Jack doesn't really know how to do some things, he sure as well knows how to play Army, that's for sure. And even if Jack thinks that his difference makes him bad, Rusty clearly points out perfectly that what makes you different is what makes you you. And Rusty does a perfect job of pointing that out. It's just such a lovable, wonderful episode, and I can easily say this is easily the best episode from season 2. I love the ending too, where Rusty's dad sees Rusty and Rusty gives him a big old hug. It's such a wonderful episode, and it's easily my favorite from season 2. Whoo boy, season 2 was something. I think it's a bit better than season 1, not gonna lie. There is a lot of really good episodes this season. I think my favorite from this season is better than my favorite from season 1, which was Bumpy and the Old Wise Hound, which that episode was also amazing, but man, this one, woo! I hope in the future I'll be able to talk about Bluey Season 3. And while a lot of it is out, not all of Bluey Season 3 is quite out yet. But eventually I definitely will be talking about Bluey Season 3. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day, and I will see you next time.